Hi, welcome back to Talent Thrives Here, where we talk to people managing people. Our special guest today, Mr. Ken Faier, El Presidente and CEO of Epic Story Media in Toronto. Epic Story Media is an entertainment production company focused on kids' properties, brand creation, and brand management. Ken has a rich history in the animation industry and leadership roles at DHX, Nerdcore Entertainment, Alliance Atlantis, and in publishing at Brunico Communications, spanning the past 20 plus years. Ken, welcome to Talent Thrives Here, and thank you for joining us today.
It's a pleasure. Thank you, Lance.
The industry has gone through, as you know, a major reset over the past few years. I don't think the disruption is over yet, but what does it look like from your seat as a studio owner and someone who's been in the industry for a considerable amount of time?
Sure, it's a big question, and for sure we're going through, I think the word disruption is a good term to use over the last 20 plus years being in the television business. I've always thought about it not from a TV perspective, but really about an audience perspective. And we're all servicing kids. When I was launching Kid Screen magazine over 25 years ago, the whole terminology we used was about reaching kids through entertainment. And it's not just TV. It's there's a broad swath of ways that kids engage with content, and it's not always purely linear television that they go to for their entertainment. And we've seen this. I've seen this over the last 20 plus years, changing and evolving. You know, when pay TV came into existence 30 plus years ago, that created a whole new opportunity for producers to reach kids on these channels that were suddenly now targeting kids. That business is still around, but certainly has been affected pretty significantly. So I've seen it evolving. Sometimes it feels like a slow moving train wreck. Sometimes it feels like a supersonic train that you have to be keeping up with. And I'm always go back to the point of view of where are kids? You know, how do you reach them? How do you provide quality content as something to offer for their parents as well that is trusted, that's curated? Moved into a new era of creator-driven platforms. You know, certainly YouTube and Roblox. I think we'll talk a little bit about that too down the road. And I've always felt like we had to have as close a relationship with our audience as possible. So I entered into the gaming space probably about 15 years ago with a mobile game team, and while I was at Nerdcore. That team still is with me after we got acquired by DHX at the time. It was now called WildBrain. And when I left, I acquired that business back when I started Epic Story Media, feeling that it was a wonderful way to provide entertainment, gaming entertainment in this respect, where kids can download games and play those games with their favorite properties. And we needed to be where kids were. And at that time, that was certainly something that we felt very strongly about. It initially started with Flash games, evolved into mobile, and we do some other types of games as well. And then eventually, certainly YouTube, as it started to grow and become a dominant force in audience acquisition, it is the biggest platform there is for kids. The business models are not ideal for the traditional business, and that's probably the biggest disruption, is that a lot of viewers have fled traditional television and grown up with an iPad in their control, and they're curating themselves, or the algorithm is curating for them. So being able to adapt, learn from that data that you get from viewing patterns, and seeing some of these platforms rise over the last 15 years, and keeping an eye on that and jumping into it when the time is right. So we've done a lot of those moves in the last 2 years. When I started Epic Story Media about 6 years ago, I couldn't predict it would move at this speed. Certainly the streaming services came in, and Netflix changed the model significantly. A lot of the other entertainment companies, vertically integrated entertainment companies and tech companies, streaming has become the way that kids consume, whether it's YouTube or Netflix, which is more of a subscription service. So very different than a pay TV service or a free-to-air service, which just broadcasts, and they promote to try and bring viewers to their channel to see your shows. So every disruption, every new piece of technology or new platform creates disruption. And it's our job to make sure that we predict what that is and try and put our best strategy forward to follow it and figure out the business model of how you fund the creation of content.
Yeah, it amazes me that I think you hit on it, that the pace changed dramatically, right? And
Yeah.
technology years ago, things would change over a 10-year span, not in a sort of 2-year window. It seems like, and I think COVID really was like a catalyst for an awful lot of things, and
Yeah.
we're on the other side of that, slowly sort of, I think, piecing things back together. But I'm curious about Roblox from your perspective, because I've read a lot about preschoolers moving there initially probably to play games, but now they're hanging out more in a social context and chatting. It's become a community sort of hub for a lot of people.
Hmm.
And what's been your experience with either, as from your studio perspective, but also from your client mix? Is it a question that comes up all the time now? How are we getting on Roblox and how are we managing that? And if you could give me some detail on that, and anyone
Sure.
listening, I think it'd be interesting.
Sure. Yeah, I would say I'm not an expert, and in fact, I'm not an expert at anything. What I'm pretty good at is aligning the interests of a whole bunch of different verticals. And when you're trying to build a brand, trying to build an IP, being as 360 as possible. There were many different terms for it over the years, but I think 360 is a good way to think about it, where the audience is at the center, and kids are very quick. They know the technology better than most adults do, and they can pick up very quickly from when they're very young using an iPad or a device such as an iPad, and finding the content, whether it be on YouTube. YouTube is a creator-driven platform, so any creator can upload content. Roblox is very similar. It's been around for almost 20 years, or it might even be 20 years, and has evolved significantly to become a creator platform. So they're building the tools to allow developers, which often is kids, teenagers, young adults, who develop games, create them, and launch them. And there's millions of games on there. So when we first started to explore it, we were looking to bring one of our IP to the platform. And so we started to look for studios that were making games. And we found that often it was just an individual, one or two people who met through Roblox, and they decided to develop a game together. There are now more professional studios, I would call it that. Although these kids who are making games, they're as professional as they come. They grew up on the platform, they understand it. So you started with preschoolers. I think preschool is a little bit young for Roblox, although it's starting to get younger. And at the same time, it's getting older. We recently launched a game for Slugterra, which is a property that we created at I was at Nerdcore by Ace 50, and I'm still working on the brand. THX Wildbrain owns the brand, but when I left, we negotiated a deal where I was continuing to represent the brand. And so we just launched a Roblox game for Slugterra. Very excited about it. Pretty cool. We got it on there about a month and a half ago, and players started to find it and really enjoyed the game. So it is about discoverability, just like it is on YouTube. There's billions of minutes of content uploaded all the time. It's a sea of content. So how do you find your audience? It takes time. It's a little bit different than YouTube because it's more of a gaming experience, but you said it, it's also a social experience. Friends will jump into a game, play for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and say, hey, let's go to another game. And they explore the universe. It's pretty amazing that they can explore millions of experiences that are out there. And they're hunters and gatherers because they love to express themselves through their avatar. It's a very important feature within Roblox, and there's a lot of functionality that they put into the avatar system, and getting UGC items, which are really elements that you can add to your avatar. And one of the stats that I read, which blew me away, is that girls, particularly on Roblox, change their outfit on their avatar 3 times a day, which is very similar to the real world. I do have a daughter, and I see that. That's probably more than 3 times. But really, it's about providing an environment, hopefully a safe environment. And what I think about Roblox that I'm amazed by is how much they put into security, privacy. It's a COPPA compliant platform. They have moderation, AI moderation, human moderation, and you need to behave. If you don't, you get kicked off the platform. So it's probably the safest of all the social media platforms. It's a social media platform. It's a gaming platform. It's a communication platform. And their plans for the next many years is to continue to grow it. It's they're close to 80 million players per day on the platform, 250 to 300 million unique players per month. And their goal, stated last year at the Roblox Developer Conference, was to get to 1 billion monthly active users in the next 5 years. And I think they're going to do it. And they're expanding the age range. I even see it on the Slugterra game. I think half the players playing our game are 18 and up. And it's a kid's IP, which is cool to see.
Yeah.
So really it's for all people. I mean, YouTube is more of a sit back-ish experience. You're a bit more involved in it and picking the videos, but the algorithm also serves the next video. In Roblox, it's a little bit more complicated, but also once you learn the tools and learn how to draw audience to it, it's actually something that is, I wouldn't say easier, but you can draw players and audience to your game easier than you can and cheaper than you can on YouTube. So you got to think about it a little bit differently, and you still need fun gameplay, and you need to figure out why the person's avatar, the player's avatar, is going to be a key feature of that. Because people love to show off what they have, what they've acquired over time. They'll have thousands of items in their collection to dress up their avatar, and however they feel that day, they'll put a certain hat on, backpack, you name it, and they go out there and they play and they share their experiences also on YouTube and TikTok. That's where a lot of players find out. There's a big influencer community in the Roblox world. So we work with a lot of them when we're launching a new game or doing a UGC drop for the avatars. Like sometime we just did one last week for Slugterra. We gave away a UGC item, and that drew a lot of players that day. And more people discover it because they want to find, they're always looking to get a free avatar item. And so they'll explore a game, and if they like it, hopefully they'll come back. So there are ways to draw players to your game that are different than YouTube. And I think it's just building those skill sets to improve your ability to get better at Roblox. And it's a very different culture even on the development team that we have. It's a studio that we launched almost 2 years ago called Freeground. We have just under 20 people in the team. These are people who have experience from traditional video games. Some are Roblox native developers that we found over time. Who work for us, and then it's really run by somebody who we hired named Laurent Mercure, who is a community management person. He's been in video games for many years, and he never developed a game himself, so he wasn't sure he should take the role, but he's been awesome, and his whole career has been about engaging with community, listening to community, bringing back the feedback to the developers to improve the game, because this is what the fans want. So he's brought that approach to our games. So we're constantly listening, reacting to, updating the game based on feedback. And you have to build that into your plan, build it into your budget, which is quite different than doing a linear story. You can listen a little bit to audience when you're creating story. And I think we try to do that more now than we did maybe 10 years ago. And, especially when you're using something like YouTube, you have to understand YouTube as a platform and the algorithm and how it serves content, which is different than linear television. Linear television has like a 3-act structure in a story. In YouTube, you almost want a 2-act structure. You want to get straight to it. You don't want to lose your audience in that first 30 seconds. So it's just each platform has its subtle differences that you need to get better at understanding.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking while you're saying it too, it seems to me that the the viewer sort of has more sway or say or influence now than, we'd have episode after episode, and the idea was they'd stay in for the story arc, right? They want to see a whole season, hopefully, of the show. And now it's much more short form, and again, the gaming content to me, it reminds me a little bit back even 20 odd years ago, where I can think of a game called Diablo. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it was on a bunch of consoles, but there was a modding community that started to build special swords and special armor. And it wasn't really endorsed, I don't think, by the developer of the game, but it took off. And so much so I remember interviewing a lady for a position as an art director, and she said, "Have you met my husband?" And he had they were buying swords on eBay. Unbeknownst to the publisher of the game, there was this community that it took off, and to your point, they would go into the game and someone say, "Where did you get that sword? That's crazy." "Oh, I had a custom designed by," And that sort of customization took on such a life of its own, and here we
Yeah,
are 20 odd years later, and it's
yeah.
come, I think, full circle where people are,
Yeah, and I think it's community fans. So let's call it. And I think when I look at our business, what is our business? I think we're in the fandom business. We want,
yep, yep,
that the center of your most ferocious fans. That's who has great influence. You want to listen to what they have to say, and you want to grow that fandom. It's going to grow to a certain extent, but it has a bigger effect also on others who will follow. Maybe not as deeply, but who get into the lore. And I think, when I think about the linear content business and story, it's still so important.
right,
Roblox is great, but it's kind of hard to create love of a property because Slugterra is a known brand and now is on Roblox. Now the Roblox community, who are also fans of Slugterra, they're really wrapping their arms around it, and they know all the lore. They know it because they've watched the show and they love the show and love the
right,
characters, and they're asking for things in the game, and that's beautiful. That's
yeah,
what I talk about 360. If we only had the Roblox game for Slugterra, would it be as effective? I don't know.
right,
And there are some games on Roblox, some of the bigger games that have started on Roblox that have now become more 360.
sure,
But that's only just starting in the last couple of years. Toys were out there, but now you're starting to see content being developed for these
yeah,
IP that started on Roblox.
yeah,
So I think it's a platform for us to launch new IP
right,
and then build all the other pieces.
yep,
Because you can't do it all at once. It's expensive to do it all at once. To do a
sure,
TV series, a Roblox game, a mobile game when you're starting from scratch with no fans.
right,
So you got to think a lot about strategies, and for artists who might be watching this, or I have my daughter's an artist and she's coming out of school soon, trying to figure out what she wants to do. We've employed many artists, whether they be animators, designers, background designers, 3D artists, you name it. This disruption, that's going on has a great effect on the employment opportunities that are out there. And I worry about that for everybody. And it's, 3, 4, 5 years ago, we were probably in the golden age where
yep,
Netflix was spending, Amazon was spending, everybody was spending to build this kid audience on their platforms, and they probably overspent. So you had that going on, plus pay TV and free to air going on in terms of investing. So there was almost too much, maybe. And so we got used to it, all of us, including all the artists, and the jobs were there aplenty, and there was a lot of
yep,
studios that did the work. There wasn't enough talent. So
yep,
I do think there's a bit of a reset that's gone on, and we do have to think about, where do you put your time
yep,
in where the new audience, where the audience is now, is not where it
yeah.
was.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I've been talking to people. I said we came through a bubble, really. The last 3 to 6 years was, and again, streaming taking over cable, and then the streaming war. Netflix sort of was, I think, one of the most prominent early risers, but then everybody came in and I think sort of blew their brains out a little bit trying to compete with Netflix. And Disney's scaling back, and they say they might not have made any money yet. They're saying Q4 this year is when they're going to start turning a profit. And you saw Paramount's probably and
Mm-hmm.
really hammered. But it's quite a wild ride the last few years, right? Nothing has
Yeah,
really
no
stayed the
doubt.
same. Yeah. So I'm wondering though, looking forward, positive notes. Can you see some evolution out of all these changes? Because I would love to imagine it's going to slow down for a minute at some point and hit a plateau or stabilize again, maybe in 2025 or something like that. And is the sort of the gamification of these brands and platforms like Roblox. How are they going to impact the lay of the land in this industry? And
Mm-hmm.
because I think there's a lot of realignment right now, but some of it's still very new for a lot of brands. And I'm
Yeah.
wondering, if we fast forwarded another 12 or 18 months, do we have different conversations around the restructure potentially of how
Sure.
kids are absorbing media, really?
Yeah, look, I think in terms of from a positive point of view, the way I look at it, when I started Epic Story Media, it was all about working with great creators that I either worked with before or wanted to work with, and building a partnership with those creators. And the goal wasn't necessarily to go into Netflix and pitch a show that they would then make as an original that we would make for them, which would then end up ultimately becoming a service gig and us doing the production and then they control it. That was never our goal. Our intention was to try and retain rights and build them as brands, because Netflix's goal is to drive subscribers. A little bit of merchandising, but no, it's a tiny fraction of the revenues that they make. It's all about driving subscribers, and same for pay TV services. It's always been like that. Broadcasters just want to have an audience. They monetize the audience either through subscriptions or advertising. So for us, it was about trying to create IP that would have lasting value, and Slugterra is a great example of that. We worked with Disney back in the day in 2012, launched it on there, and they had it for X number of years, and then after that, then we're still working on it. You know, they got what they wanted out of it. They got ratings, and then they move on and they bought Marvel, Star Wars, etc. And it became less important for them because it's not their ownership. They don't own it. So it's always been about trying to manage those rights for the long haul. And so, you know, going into Netflix with an original, the challenge is it could take years. You know, even in success, so you go into development for a couple of years. Then maybe they say yes, then you go into production, so you deliver 2 years later. So you're talking about a 5-year process, if in success. Right. You know, I fast forward to a most recent deal that we did. We work with a company called Jakks Pacific. It's a toy company in the US. They had a toy line that they were presenting to retail. They got picked up for the property. It's called Wild Mains. This was last October. They called me up and said, look, we need content to support this launch. And within 2 months, we negotiated a deal, created the show, hired a team, started production in January of this year, delivered the first episode in May. So all within like 6 or 7 months. And we're rolling those episodes out on YouTube. We just launched a Roblox game for it. So that, compared to a 5-year development cycle. Now, those are for that's a premium show. If you're going to go with Netflix, the budgets are much bigger. Now, even them, they're scaling back a little bit in terms of, first of all, how many they're doing, how much do they need to spend, and they're trying to create almost more 4-quadrant shows as opposed to just kids shows. Because what the streamers have realized is that kids are great for reducing churn, which means, you know, if I'm a Netflix subscriber and this month there's nothing there, I might put my subscription on hold. But if I have a child who's watching a lot of shows on Netflix, you're less likely to cancel. But what they think is happening is that it's not driving new subscriptions for a general entertainment service like Netflix. So their investment. So they scaled way back. And same for HBO Max, same for Paramount. Although Paramount is part of, you know, they also have Nickelodeon, and Warner has Cartoon Network, and Disney has Disney Channel, but it's certainly moving more and more towards streaming, but it's a generalized service. So that's the challenge that we face. And so the number of premium shows for someone who's been an animator for 20 years as a senior director, whatever that may be, it's a little more challenging. There's going to be less of those big shows, but they might be bigger. So there is opportunity for those, you know, younger people who are just coming out of school. You know, I think there is definitely a move towards producing maybe shorter form content, maybe more volume of it, but just at a different price point, because it's hard to monetize YouTube in a significant way. So you have to, you know, what else are you monetizing? You know, what's the return on investment? So I'm always looking at where's the return on investment coming in. For kids content, often the content is hard to make a return. So you have to look at the franchise ability of the show. So something like Jakks and Wild Mains, that's a toy line. They're trying to sell toys, but also build a publishing program and, you know, build it into an entertainment franchise, not just a toy line. So that's why they came to us. And you know, one of my favorites comments that one of the senior execs there made, who had just joined the company, we'd already started out Jakks, we just started production. And we had an update meeting, and we're doing the Roblox game. We're managing the YouTube channel. We're doing community management on Roblox and with YouTube to drive it. We're doing the distribution of the content to TV channels, and we're doing the licensing for all the other categories. And she said, you know, when I was at my previous company, we would have had to work with 5 different agencies to do what you guys are doing. So, you know, we've tried to set ourselves up for that. And that's why we've been able to greenlight some content in the last 2 years, both traditionally, because we did a show for HBO Max called Hop from Mark Brown, the creator of Arthur. That's a premium show with a premium streamer, right to the show that we're doing with Jax, with Wild Mains. And the show's now been on YouTube for about 6 weeks, rolling out an episode every week. The Roblox game's live, and we're going to start the marketing machine behind it in a week or two. So that'll start to build awareness, and the toys are already on shelf. So, you know, we're just looking at all the different ways to try and finance projects. And there's a lot of partners around the world that are like us that are trying to figure it out. And co-production is back at the front burner for many people, because there's different countries that have different subsidy systems, just like Canada. And Canada works well with Spain, France, Italy, you name it. And so we're engaging in a ton of conversations about projects that we have and projects that they have that we could bring to Canada to at least have 20, 30, 50, 80% of the project being done here in Canada. Still a broadcast market here, TVO, CBC, Family Channel. There's a lot of challenges at Chorus and not ordering much. The French broadcasters in Quebec are still ordering some properties. So there's still a way to do a TV premium, maybe not super high-end, super expensive show for Netflix. There's still ways to do it. And so my message to everybody is, you know, just look at your skill set, understand the disruption that's going on. And Roblox, by the way, it's easy. I wouldn't go on and make it. I'm not an artist. I'm not a CG. I don't do 3D models. I don't do programming. But they make it so that a 15-year-old can do it. So if you've been in the business for 20 years, why not go and try it? Just that they have all the tools there. If you have skills with computer, skills with software tools in animation, there's no reason why you couldn't use it to either make a game or even do linear storytelling. There are companies that are using the Roblox tools to produce content for YouTube at a lower cost. Because you're just not going to monetize it as significantly on YouTube. And I just say, what are you trying to build? If you're trying to build a fan base, then it's a great tool. Just like YouTube is, just like TikTok is, just like the other platforms. I mean, TikTok's not supposed to be for under 13-year-olds, but of course they're on there.
Sure.
And what other platforms are there? So know where they are, and then get your content in front of them, let them fall in love with it, and then they'll become a follower and a fan, and continue to engage. So there's different ways to do it other than, you know, production company like us funding millions of dollars of production. An individual can do it. I mean, kids have been doing it for the last 15 years on YouTube. So there's no reason why artists in our industry can't do it themselves too. It's not an easy way, but it's a way.
Yeah, and I think that's that pivot in mindset too, of not being the employee, being the producer. You know, there's so many very inexpensive tools now available too for video content and content creation, but editing that, you know, years ago they would be massive subscriptions every year for whether it be an Adobe product or something like that, or, you know, I think of Avid and it's really, you know, you keep hearing the term democratization of the tools and the media and how it's being created. But yeah, I think that someone's been in the industry, to your point, for a while is probably going to have to get a little bit more entrepreneurial and scrappy about it and get in there and get their hands dirty, because potentially that's a chunk of the road ahead right now. And until things
it is, and partnering with, you know, we have creators coming to us that have started a YouTube channel, have a few episodes up, and it's gaining some momentum, you know, and then, you know, we look at that and say, you know what, I think there's something here, and then we might get behind it and see if we can finance more episodes, look at co-production opportunities. You know, and the artists, they're, you know, most artists that I've met, they're constantly creating art, they're constantly doing something. That's artistic, and so figure out a way to put it in front of people, and YouTube's a great opportunity to do that. And I don't think there's any risk, because most broadcasters in the past were kind of, I was on YouTube, I'm not interested. I don't think that's the case anymore. And in fact, you know, if you look at Netflix, a lot of their top shows, Cocomelon being one of them, and Little Angels another one, these are nursery rhyme type properties that started on YouTube with massive views, and it's some of their top performing content. So they acquire it. So and most broadcasters are pretty open to producers or distributors, allowing the distributor or the property owner to have a YouTube channel with a certain amount of content. They know that it makes it better for them too, because it's gaining fans maybe on a platform that they're not subscribing to that. So just, yeah, scrappy and entrepreneurial. I think, that's what I've been my whole career. And I've never had to use more of those muscles in the last year and a half, when there's definitely headwinds. A lot of companies are not surviving this this pivot point or this disruption, because they might be in one slice of the vertical of the traditional business. And I've always wanted to be not just in one slice, but across all of it, because maybe we just have to shift. But linear storytelling is always going to be critical. Without it, I just don't think you create the love of the characters, love of the brand, and can replace that. That's what I worry about this generation growing up, watching stuff in 7 seconds, flip. I worry about that, and but at the same time, they're watching what they love. Could be some gamers just posting him playing a game, and they're watching it for hours. I would love to get that engagement. We can't say it's wrong, but you need all of the tools of your brain development, and that's where kids is important. You go from preschool into 6 to 11 and teenagehood, and you're changing more than any other time of your life, and your brain is developing at rapid speed. So I worry about the technology and the impact on our audience, but we bring the same approach, hopefully a very a caring approach. We think about educational curriculum, we think about privacy issues, we think about all of that when we have to protect kids. And when we're putting something out, we have great talent working on it. The budgets might be a little smaller, but we're still trying to achieve what we've achieved on a high budget show. The story should still be the same. How you animate it, if it's not super high-end CG versus maybe it's 2D more simplistic, but the story still has to be great. So I think there's always going to be a place for writers, for designers, for artists. I mean, AI is a whole other thing. I don't know if we have time to talk about that. I'm obviously watching it and watching the reaction from talent, and I do worry for talent and ourselves. We may, but I think we have to use it to make us better. But we don't currently use it in design. We don't use it in writing. We don't use it, but certain things we might. But we're careful about it. We're very aware of the impact on jobs and the ability to have a path for a career path in this sector. And if we lose talent to something else, then we don't have that talent to draw upon. So we want them to thrive.
No, it's. When you said AI, I thought, Ken, we don't have another hour. Hold on.
No, that's my summary of getting into it. I've always I don't want to be on the bleeding edge. Like Roblox has been around a long time. We only went into it 2 years ago, and I'm really pleased that we did. But 15 years ago, I don't think it would have made any sense for us to go there. The audience wasn't as big and whatnot. So, we're always keeping an eye and saying at the right time we should be there. There's lots of issues when it comes to these tech companies too. There's privacy issues, COPPA compliant. They're not all COPPA compliant, so we don't want to go in a place where it puts our audience at risk. If we are on TikTok, it's more to target parents, to let them be aware of what's there for their kids, and it's not a primary driver. I mean, really for us, it's TV, YouTube, Roblox, mobile gaming, or mobile games. Our studio, we recently passed 100 million downloads for our various games, and that's pretty awesome. It's a great number, and I'm proud of it. And our team has done a great job of really caring about the games that they put out. The Slug Terra game we have, the first one we put out was 2012. And that game's still on Apple, not on Google anymore, because we didn't continue updating it. But the second one, the Slug It Out 2 is the name of the game. It's been 7 years, 8 years, and we're still putting time and effort into it and serving the community. And as soon as we don't, it starts to tail off. As soon as when we put that effort in, you see the numbers go back up. So, fans want you to continue to add stuff to it. And it costs money, of course, but you have to right size the business model for it. But anyways.
Cool. Great. Well, you covered some of the questions I was going to ask, so that was fantastic. And I just want to thank you for being here today. I really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing, what the road ahead looks like for you as well as everyone in the industry. And again, I can't thank you enough, Ken. It was great having you on the show today.
Appreciate it. This is not our company logo back here. This is a piece of art, but I kind of like it. It's like constantly be thinking is what it says to me. It's a beautiful piece. And I think that, we just can't say, oh, it's going to get better without doing anything. I think that's the real critical piece of it. Don't wait, just try things. And there's the community is global. Doesn't have to be a local job. You can work from anywhere, as that's what COVID proved to us. I think there's opportunity out there, different parts of the world. There's a lot of activity, and don't have to necessarily move there, but you can. I do think there are, I think there's, so I'm a positive person. I think it's going to be difficult, but there's still plenty of opportunity ahead. So thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
And take care, everybody.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks.